Well, we kind of know what our device is, how to hook it up to our computer. We also know what kind of report we're trying to get out. So let's go through a step-by-step how to do a spirometry test.
Okay.
And I've got a document here. You can also print this out for your reference if you wish. I'm going to use it as kind of a guide to follow along with. Step 1, connect the device to the computer via USB port. Step 2, we need to connect the pressure tube and attach the mouthpiece. Open up our software, and that's where I'm going to take over. We're going to go ahead and close this for now. And we're going to go back to our office medic. I'm going to need a volunteer patient for today. And we'll go ahead and do a sample spirometry report. How's that sound?
Great.
All right. So how many people do I have in the room today?
It's 4 of us.
4 of us. All right. So if I could have one volunteer be the technician, one volunteer be the patient. Is that okay?
Yep, we got them selected.
All right. So technician, go ahead and let's start getting our patient information in. Now, before we do that, I'll actually cover some of these buttons up here.
Okay.
Generally, this layout, these buttons up here, are all you're going to ever need. There are some advanced options you can get to from the file menu if you need to. But generally speaking, there's a couple of buttons up here that you're going to use. You're going to use your new patient button, the very first one on the left, little guy with the green plus sign. And we're going to choose what kind of test we want to do. Is it ECG or spirometry? If you ignore SpO2, we no longer do that. Open is a redundant one. Delete, so if we can delete test sessions and patients. We can refresh our tree, print preview, and print to file. We'll cover those at the end of our test session. And then, of course, our user's manual with the big blue question mark.
Okay.
Right now, we don't have any patients. We have calibration data listed here. That's always going to be listed on the top. Generally speaking, if people are doing trials, they'll be frequently checking their calibration, and that calibration data is then stored into that very top record. So let's start out. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop driving and let the technician drive. We're going to click on the new patient icon.
Yeah, click on.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that's going to bring up our patient information form. You'll notice that we have some fields that have an asterisk next to it, like last name, then asterisk, first name, asterisk, account number, asterisk. Those are the required fields. The fields that do not have that asterisk are not required. So if we could go ahead and enter in some last name and first name and account number, and you can get an account number from your EMR system, or you can make one up for your individual patients. Just remember that each patient requires a unique account number. In the old days, we probably would have used something like a Social Security number. These days, with HIPAA laws, we probably wouldn't do that. If you do not have an account numbering system, I would suggest this. Type in the patient's first initial. If you could go ahead and type in the patient's first initial there, last initial, and then date of birth. That creates a pretty unique account number too. All right, and so we're going to skip ID, address, and phone number. Those are not required. We're going to go ahead and click into our height in feet and inches. Now you can either click in there, or you can use the tab on your keyboard. Depends on what your keyboard layout is. So we need a height in feet and inches. So the left column is feet, the right column is inches. Weight is not a requirement. Let's go ahead and use our gender. Gender is drop down, male or female. And our race is also a drop down. These are important for our spirometry predicted normals. And our date of birth is a 3-celled field. You can click into the month. I recommend actually typing it in. If you click on it, it brings up that little calendar, but if you have to scroll back through, like in my case, 44 years, it gets to be a little cumbersome. So I would recommend that you just click into each field and type it in using your keyboard.
You're in a year. You need to go to the month first.
Yeah, let's go ahead and click into the month, 03, and then click into the next cell. Yep, that would be 05. Click into the next field and type in 1976. All right. Smoking pack years is an optional field. It has nothing to do with predicted values or interpretation. It is simply a reference marker for the reviewing physician to discuss opportunity of perhaps a smoking cessation program. Smoking pack years, if you want to use that field, is calculated by multiplying the number of packs per day times the number of years the patient has been smoking. For instance, if I smoked a pack a day for the last 15 years, my smoking pack years number would be 15. Let's go ahead and click on OK. That is going to save our patient into the patient database. Now, you'll notice that there is a plus sign to the left of the patient. If you click on that plus sign, it will expose the 3 different types of testing that we do. If we had any spirometry or ECG tests performed already, there would be plus signs to the left of spirometry or ECG. Our patient is already highlighted, so let's begin our first spirometry test. You can go ahead and click initialize the test by clicking on the flow volume loop icon just to the right of the print to file icon in the toolbar. There you go. Let's go ahead and click on that. All right, that's going to bring up our Spirometry Test Session Manager. Test Session Manager is capable of recording 3 different types of tests and post-tests to go with each of those different types of maneuvers. Our recommendation is that you focus on FVC. MVV and SVC testing are rarely requested. Additional information can be found on those in our user's manual. But the ATS recommends that we use the FVC, or forced vital capacity testing. So let's go ahead and click on pre-FVC to begin our first test. When we click on that button, it's going to bring up our Prepare for FVC Testing button, our dialog box. It's going to ask us to input our mouthpiece number. Mouthpiece number is an 8-digit code located on the mouthpiece. Important to accurately put that in there. That is a correction factor for the system, telling the computer how to adjust itself for that particular mouthpiece. All QRS mouthpieces are calibrated in the factory. Physician or tech is an optional field, typically used in clinical trials or studies where multiple technicians are performing tests for one physician. That way the physician can go back and check who the technician was and may request that they redo a specific test. All right. The graphic located underneath there is a reminder on how to instruct the patient on how to hold the mouthpiece. We never want them to cover up the mesh vented end of the mouthpiece nearest the pressure tube, as that will cause probably force foreign matter down through that pressure tube, creating a cross-contamination issue. And we don't want that to happen. Also, the result of the test will be off the scale. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to walk you through, before we click on OK, I'm going to walk you through what's about to happen, and we're going to have the patient perform the maneuver. Here's what's going to happen. When we click on OK, the device is going to attempt to find zero pressure movement. So we don't want to move the mouthpiece. We want to just keep it still. It's going to flash yellow and green until it finds a zero baseline condition, meaning we're ready to take a test. Once it does that, it displays 2 green circles as preparatory, and then it will display the actual incentive graph. When the incentive graph is displayed, we have about 30 seconds to actually have the patient blow into the mouthpiece. So when it goes double green and displays the incentive graph, I want you to take your biggest, deepest breath in, place the mouthpiece in your mouth, creating a tight seal, making sure that your lips and teeth and tongue are not obstructing the mouthpiece opening. You're going to blow out as hard as you can, as fast as you can, as long as you can. And I'm going to coach you to keep pushing, even though it's going to feel like you can't push. You're going to continue to push as long as I keep coaching, okay?
Okay.
All right, so let's go ahead and begin. We're going to click on OK, and again, we're going to go through our zeroing phase. It's going to flash yellow and red circles. And we're going to wait for the double green and then the display graph, and then I'm going to instruct you to take your biggest, deepest breath in. And when you're ready, put the mouthpiece in your mouth, blow out as hard as you can. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going if you can. Keep going, keep going. And take a big, deep breath in. Oh, we missed it. That's all right. And test timed out right about here. And all that means is that it just stopped reading any pressure movement. The end of every trial is going to ask us, do we want to accept or reject the test? Yes or no? Do we want to accept? Yes or no? I recommend that you always say yes to save your test sessions. That way you can always go back in and delete any that you don't want. Now let's take a look at this flow volume loop for just a moment. At the very beginning, we had the system detected that you had a minor inhalation, so you might have still been taking in air right when you put the mouthpiece in your mouth, and then you blew out really hard. And at the very beginning, you're pushing out a lot of air, and then toward the end, you can't push out any more air. Now, let me talk about these two markers here. PEFR, based on your demographics, your peak expiratory flow rate, you should be getting your graph closer to that if you don't have some type of condition. And you should be able to blow out to your FEV6 value. So you should still be able to maintain blowing out up to that 6 seconds. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be blowing out as hard as you can, as fast as you can, but you also need to be blowing out as long as you can. Okay?
Okay.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and click on yes to accept that test, and I'm going to talk about the results for this particular test. In the left column, we have our FVC, our parameters, including FVC, FEV1, and FEV1 over FVC. In this column, we have our predicted values. This is just the same information that what it looks like on the report that I showed at the beginning of this training session. Our lower limits and normal, the actual patient results for this specific maneuver, and the percentage of predicted values. If I wanted to, I can get a quick interp on that one test session, and we can see that we do have normal spirometry, but our lung age calculation is a little bit out there. All right. So now you'll notice that we have post-FVC right here. That's now available because we have a minimum of 1 pre. The ATS says that we should do a minimum of 3 FVC tests, and 2 of them should be within 150 milliliters of each other. And of course, our software actually tells us when that happens. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add in another FVC test. We're not going to use this next test button. We're just going to click on pre-FVC button to start another test. And if the patient is ready, we're going to go ahead and get started. And again, we're going to wait till the device gets to 0. Take your biggest, deepest breath in and blow out whenever you're ready. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep pushing, keep pushing. All right, we're done. All right. And it says that it's trying to coach us to perform to our predicted value. Now, if you're not feeling a little lightheaded and perhaps a little dizzy, a little red in the face, so to speak, and maybe even a little silly, then you're not performing this test to your maximal effort.
Oh, she said she's not. So we need to have her do it again.
That's okay. That's okay. All right, so let's go ahead and click on yes to accept that test. Again, we can go back out and delete any that we don't want later. So I'm going to let you guys drive this time. I just kind of jumped in there a little bit to help you along. So go ahead and click on yes to accept that test maneuver, please. All right. And so this test, a little bit different. Again, we have our parameters, our predicted values, our lower limits and normal, and really that's kind of when we tell us there's a problem, and our percentage of predicted value. So let's go ahead and add in a third test and see if we can meet that ATS reproducibility criteria. All right, and again, we're going to wait till the device gets to 0. Big deep breath in. Yep, keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing. Keep going, keep blowing, keep blowing, keep blowing. And I want you to take a big deep breath in now.
Deep breath in. She keeps getting that deep breath in.
That's all right. We're missing the inspiratory loop, but that's okay. It's actually not required and doesn't have anything to do with predictive values. Some physicians will want to see that inspiratory loop. That's why they call it flow volume loop testing or That's why sometimes it's referred to that. They want to see the flow volume. They also want to see that inspiratory loop. So let's go ahead and click on yes to accept this test as well. Now, we've actually met the ATS reproducibility criteria. Simply what that means is that the difference between the largest and next largest FVC values is within 150 milliliters, and also the FEV1 value is less than 150 milliliters difference from the best and second best. At this point, I would call this session complete and reproducible. So let's go ahead and click on OK. And we're going to go ahead and click on OK again. Now, one thing that I want to show you is that once we get that reproducibility criteria and we get back to this screen right here, most people want to print from here. It just seems logical, right? But if you print from here, what you're going to print is just this one session. These navigation buttons bring you from test 1 to test 2 to test 3, and you'll see that the graphing changes and the numbers change. And if I wanted to print one of the individual tests, then yes, I would print from right here. But I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. And now that you'll see that underneath that patient, we have a plus sign to the left of spirometry, indicating that there is a spirometry test there. Today's date and time is what we call that test session. And underneath there is all 3 of our individual FVC maneuvers. Now what I want to do is print out a graphical overlay for physician review. So I'm going to select that test session, and then I'm going to use one of my print buttons, whether it's print, that's going to send it to a printer. Print preview is going to show me what the print job looks like on my screen before I send it to a printer, or print to a file that's going to convert it to a PDF or a JPEG or some type of image file that I might be importing into my EMR at some point. I'm going to use the print preview button. That's going to actually render our results to our screen, and you can take a look at your spirometry report. Let's go ahead and examine that now. Again, the version of software, this is a PFT report. Date and time of the test session, our patient details and demographics. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here a little bit. In the left column are FVC values, or I'm sorry, our parameters, including FVC and FEV1 over FVC. Predicted values, lower limits than normal, best pretest effort, second and third, and of course the percentages to go along with all 3 of those. Scroll down here toward the midsection of the report. I have my best pretest effort of normal spirometry and a long age calculation of 62. Now, a lot of people won't agree with long age calculation. That's okay. It is a feature that you can turn on or off. I'm not going to debate the ATS guidelines for long age calculation. In the left side here, the graph, we have the flow volume graphing, 3 pre with an overlay. You can see that all 3 of my efforts are consistent, and we did meet that reproducibility criteria. Same information in a flow volume graph. You notice here that there was a correction rate applied to this particular test. And if you want more information, you can definitely review that in the user's manual. And it has to do with race corrections for spirometry. And there's more information on that inside the user's manual. So this is our report. Are we connected to a printer?
Yes, we are.
All right, well, why don't we go ahead and print out that test session. Select the test session. Click on the print button. We'll go ahead and click on OK. And there's your very first spirometry test.